I'd like to call to order the public safety meeting dated August 24th, 2021. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Council Kadim?
Here.
Council Libidula?
Here.
Chair.
Here. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledgeable and permissible. First item on the agenda, citizens' input. Madam Clerk, anybody?
I have none by email. I don't know if anyone's in.
Anybody in the audience sign up for citizens' input? That being said, moving on to item number 2, minutes. Is there a motion to adopt?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 3 on the agenda, resolution to discuss traffic and safety concerns in the area of Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School, adopted June 22nd, 2021. Is there a motion to, actually, we don't even need a motion. Is there anybody here to speak on behalf of Diamond? Come up to the microphone, sir.
Good evening, I'm Dr. Elvio Ferreira, Superintendent of Diamond Regional and Greater Fall River Voc Tech.
Okay.
We're here to entertain questions and answer any way we can based on the information that's been provided to the council.
Okay. A question that I do have. Have you received complaints at the school regarding traffic in that area?
We have. There's been some phone calls and emails from neighbors, especially this past year with COVID. Bus transportation's limitations on transportation for students. We did have an influx of parents and traffic in the morning and the afternoon, folks dropping off, picking up their kids. Every time we get a complaint, we try to be good neighbors. We work with the parents, letting them know when they can drop off, where they can pick up, the entrance to the driveway. There are some questions from our neighbors regarding buses. We do have 16 school buses. They do line up on Stonehaven Road in the afternoon. Our driveway situation is such that the buses can't get by each other, so they line up on Stonehaven, then come into our property for the afternoon dismissal. Every once in a while, we'll get a neighbor who calls regarding a student leaving our student parking lot. When we get those kinds of complaints, we have our SRO up in that area. We put administration in the student parking lot or in our driveways to monitor student departure and arrival at schools, but our SRO is the one that's out in the public area.
Thank you very much. Any questions, Principal?
I don't, no.
No? Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. I'd actually like to call Mrs. Ferreira and Sergeant Dolan down, if that's okay. Is it okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Can we just have the superintendent come down too, just in case?
Oh,
there's
yeah,
some
absolutely. I
questions?
apologize. So, if you don't mind, sir.
Didn't Council Rivera tell us at a meeting that she had resolved something with Diamond?
Yeah, so did I.
Okay.
There's a bunch of,
Okay.
that's all. How we doing? Saj, I know you've done a lot of research recently in that neighborhood, and I believe you have a printout of the research that you've done.
I do. I printed multiple copies.
Thank you.
Said multiple, I have enough.
Oh, perfect, thanks.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you.
You're
You
welcome.
want mine? I can share yours.
Yeah, I'll need yours after the record.
Okay.
Would you like me to explain a little bit of it?
Yes, if you don't mind, Saj.
Sure. Okay, so we've been getting complaints. I've been the sergeant from the traffic unit starting in 2018. So we've been getting complaints since around that time period, as far as I know. So I deployed one of our speed signs that you've probably seen throughout the city where it tells you your speed. It also does a traffic study while it's doing that. It measures the traffic flow, the amount of cars, speeds, and all that. So based on the complaints, I put the speed sign. Now this is, if you see up the top left-hand corner, it started, I just picked 7 days that it was up there in 2019. So it was May 25th, 2019 through May 31st of 2019. It was just a random time period while school was in session. So out of the 7 days, as you can see underneath there, under overall summary, I list the speed limit as 30 miles per hour. The sign measured the average speed of the motor vehicles at 19.3 miles per hour. That also accounts for the cars that are stuck at the stop sign over there. 50th percentile speed is close as well. The important thing that we look for in the traffic unit is the 85th percentile speed, which here is 27.12 miles per hour. So what that means is that 85% of the cars that are driving on Stonehaven Road are traveling at that 27.12 miles per hour, which is just about 3 miles per hour underneath the speed limit. The next column over, it's got one maximum speed of 53 miles per hour, which obviously is unacceptable. I have no idea of what that may have been. That may have been a police cruiser responding to an emergency or some other emergency vehicle, or it could have been a motorist. But based on the data that I continuously get from putting my speed trailer up there on Stonehaven Road, let me sidetrack a little bit. I also have officers that go there based on the complaint of this neighbor. And we don't get a lot of violations up there. Overall, it's a nice, quiet neighborhood. Obviously, since the invention of the automobile and teenagers driving automobiles, you're going to get kids acting out and driving erratically sometimes. But our numbers don't bolster the complaint that, traffic infractions are rampant in that neighborhood. We are putting officers out there enforcing all the traffic laws up there, but the numbers just don't bear out the complaint.
Okay, thank you for that explanation, Sergeant, appreciate it. Any questions for the Sergeant?
No. Thank you for sharing is caring. So just looking at the resolution, I don't think the resolution really kind of revolves around the speeding necessarily, because I tend to agree. I mean, just looking at the neighborhood, the amount of traffic that's probably going in during the morning period and the release of school is probably limited as how fast you can go with all the cars exiting or entering the school at any given time. I mean, I know Stonehaven is somewhat of a long stretch, but when you get to that other side street that goes on to President Ave, not Locust, thank you. There's not a whole lot of room there to be potentially speeding with, going on to Eastern Ave. But with regards to, and plus you've got an SRO over there also, if there are any additional complaints that are coming out. So there's a lot of monitoring going there. But I think with regard to the resolution, it does come back to, I guess, more of a safety concern about the students that walk to and from school, and making sure that the signage is appropriate in that area. So I guess I would turn it over to Laura to see if there's any additional signage that we would be looking to actually put up, or is there any recommendations that you may have for this, I guess, this committee to look into to either fund or make necessary changes or recommendations?
We do have the signs that pertain to the school, school zone, end of school zone, the speeding, during the school times. The only thing that we don't have, which we can do, is a stop ahead where the stop sign is. We usually put that about 50 feet from the stop sign, just alerting people that there's a stop sign ahead and they can start slowing down. But I agree with Councilor Kadim. I think the biggest issue is the volume of traffic that occurs in the morning and then in the afternoon. Once school is over, you get the same neighborhood, which is the quietness of the neighborhood. I mentioned it to Sergeant Dolan, but trying to split half and half the traffic when they're coming out of Diamond, maybe send some vehicles down to Locust and some down to Bedford, and that way not all of them, I don't know if you have anyone directing that traffic when they come out of that parking lot.
So when they come out of our parking lot, the entrance to the parking lot's on Stonehaven. It's a one-way parking lot, so anybody that comes in to our campus has to exit on Locust Street.
Oh, okay.
And then they can turn left to go towards Eastern Avenue, they can turn right to go towards Hyacinth, but that's anybody that comes into our campus. We don't have two-way driveways for student safety. Most of the traffic that stays up on Stonehaven, it depends which way they come in to the school area. If they come on Locust, then they're facing south on Stonehaven. If they come up Bedford, then they're facing north on Stonehaven. At that point, there is no turnaround. They kind of have to go to the next intersection, and generally they'll move west onto Eastern Avenue. So there is a distinct belief, and I think most of our folks think that the only way you can get to Diamond Regional is taking the left or the right on Locust Street to get to our area. Some folks don't know about either New Boston Road or Bedford Street, or even a little bit further down, depending on how, what part of the city you're coming from. So as we mentioned at our last meeting, at the school, we can do a better job of educating our parents, kind of giving them a map and say, you don't always have to come up Locust Street, you don't always have to go on Stonehaven Road, you can take these other routes throughout the neighborhood to kind of avoid the jam that sometimes happens up on Stonehaven Road between. We have parents that drop off kids as early as 6:30 in the morning, and we start school at 7:45, so usually at 7:40, there's a good number of cars that are coming in. And then in the afternoon, if parents do decide to come into our lot, they're there as early as 1:30 in the afternoon. We dismiss at 2:28, so that there are a large number of vehicles in and around our campus for a variety of reasons. Again, last school year, I think, was an anomaly because of the pandemic and the bus situation. Under normal circumstances, I don't think the vehicle traffic is that big, but I will tell you, there's a large number of cars.
So I guess to you, Ms. Ferrara, crosswalks, so I mean, you're very vigilant on the crosswalks for the school zone.
Right,
So there's-
we've done the double yellow line on Stonehaven.
Yep.
We will be doing the stop bar just to give it a lift.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be done hopefully next week. There is no crosswalks because there's no handicap ramps, but around the neighborhood, we've already done, wherever there is crosswalks, they've been updated and kind of gotten a little lift. So the
Okay.
only thing that's left to do is the stop bar on Bedford and Stonehaven.
All right, so the crosswalks are because of the no sidewalks with the handicap accessibility?
Correct.
So, Mr. Superintendent, just in terms of, and maybe you haven't been able to capture this, do you have a rough percentage on the number of students that walk to and from school?
It's under 25%.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a small number of kids that walk to school.
So, total population, I guess, what's that 25% equate to? Is it?
Maybe about 200-ish
200, okay.
kids. That's less than 25%, but we don't have a large number. If you stand at our campus and watch the walkers come in, there isn't a large number, and they usually come from the south,
Yes.
heading north on Stonehaven from the Talbot area.
Okay.
That's our largest walker situation.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out in terms of the amount of walkers, because I typically see, either the school buses for Diamond or parents just dropping off, and then obviously, once you get into junior, senior year, the students are driving, but
Yeah.
just trying to really kind of make a determination as to whether or not sidewalks are absolutely needed in that area, and if they're warranted. So I think that's really what the resolution is requiring us to really kind of consider. So
And I agree. After the resolution, there was an abundance of phone calls regarding speeding to the police department, to myself and other counselors too. So I figured if they were available, they could put the trailer up there as well. We could try to quell all these things at once,
So Stonehaven is a
Yeah.
pretty wide roadway. Locust, though, would that been, would you be able to get sidewalks over there?
On Locust,
Yeah.
engineer would have to take a look at that and see if the width would be enough
Okay.
to have. One of the things that, I know that Sergeant Dolan got prices on it. Chief Cardoza was looking into solar-powered speed limit signs. So we hopefully will be getting that in soon. That would be a perfect location to put it for traffic heading north and south on each side. And it'll flash what the speed that they're doing and the speed that they should be doing. The other thing we can do down there is the speed limit signs. The speed limit did change to 25. That's one thing that I can make sure that Stonehaven has 25. I know they have 20 pertaining to, close to the school, but away from the school, like on Locust, parts of Stonehaven, and even Hyacinth, we can make sure that they have 25 mile per hour signs as well.
I yield.
Thank you. Council Vice President?
I just have one question. Ms. Ferrara, I'm looking at Stonehaven. Is the sidewalk just on that side, just in front of the campus?
Yes.
And then it ends at the stop sign, and then,
That's okay.
and it's,
Oh, that's right, he's also a Ferrara.
so that, it's just on that one side,
Right,
to that one intersection, and then on the other side as far as the campus goes?
Yeah, so on our campus, we have where our student parking lot begins, so the boundary to the water department and the school, the student parking lot. There's a sidewalk on the east side of Stonehaven that runs across the front of our campus. And then when you turn onto Locust, where our driveway begins, the property between the Machados and Diamond Regional, there's a sidewalk that then runs east-west on Locust Street, heading down to the base of our campus with Hyacinth.
Okay.
But that doesn't go all the way down, right?
No,
No.
it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Are you?
Okay, I actually have an email here from Rep. Viola. I guess there was some type of study done back in August, well, actually August 8th of 2019. She put in some definite diligent work here regarding all of these issues, actually. And regarding the sidewalk on the west side of the street, where that would be the residential side, it states here, after receiving additional feedback from the residents along the west side of the street, there was more opposition than support for a complete street concept, which would have included sidewalks. So I don't know if she went herself or sent somebody over.
There was a neighborhood meeting.
Okay.
She attended there, we had it in the driveway of one of the
we
neighbors.
did.
There were several folks there, and we did discuss potentially adding sidewalks to the west side
Yeah.
of Stonehaven, and then a crosswalk from where the city sidewalk would end onto our campus, where we already have sidewalk. And that was one of the resolutions that we were looking at, but based on the input, there wasn't a lot of stomach for it, I guess. at that
Yeah,
point.
so I guess if you have more opposition than support, then I would recommend doing it. So I think that's addressed. Well, I would consider it addressed myself. With that being said, also, Mr. Perry, would you mind coming down? Oh,
You can-
Good evening, councilors.
how we doing?
Good, and yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. Question I had for you, because I've spoken with you in the past, and I spoke with Mr. Furlan, but I don't know if we have enough chairs down here, about the overgrowth on the sidewalk on the east side. And we were able, not last year because of COVID, but the year before, to cut that back the day
Correct.
before, I believe it was graduation, to cut it back and make it more accessible.
Correct.
I haven't been by there in a couple of weeks. How is it now? Do you?
Yeah, it's overgrown again, due to the fact that, as you said, in 2018, we did cut it, 19, we did cut it, along the lines of when we had that neighborhood meeting. We opened it up so that the kids would have a safe spot to walk to school. Then COVID hit, and we haven't been back. But we're going to address that before the start of school year. We'll open that up. The kids will have another walking path. And then Mr. Furlan has a project that'll be going on his property, which is in that stretch from the water department to the school. And I think that'll address the sidewalk issue and put it to bed completely.
Yeah, because I remember me and you had a conversation regarding that, and I sat there for about an hour.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much at the time, the students, it was, there was a lot of elderly that walked, and I did witness them have to walk into the street to avoid the overgrowth and go back onto the sidewalk, and I found that to be an issue when you took care of it right away, and I appreciate that, so thank you for addressing it again. That's just one more thing we can check off here.
Yeah.
Mr. Furlan, what do you have going on?
So we're going to be constructing a new water maintenance facility on to the north of our existing facility. Within that project, we'll be doing a new gate around our property, a new entrance. The entranceways into our property at the end of Bedford Street will stay, as well as the driveway entrance that we currently have that'll service the new building. But we'll have automatic gates on those that'll be closed and off hours and stuff, so any of our staff going in and out of the property will be slowed down by those gates. And then also, during part of that construction, we're going to be doing sidewalks from Bedford Street, heading north to tie into the sidewalks that run in front of the campus.
Excellent, okay.
Yep.
So
that
alleviates quite a few issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that project's currently under contract, just had the pre-construction meeting and we'll be moving forward. So I'm hoping, me and Mr. Perry talked about, possibly doing some type of temporary asphalt. The contractor said that he's going to get moving on those sidewalks probably sooner rather than later, so we'll
And
make
which,
sure
go ahead, Council
that they're
Kadim.
in place.
Oh, no, you can finish.
And obviously that would alleviate some of the traffic congestion with the water department vehicles being able to use a different area
Yeah.
a different area of egress.
Yeah, exactly. So the current driveway that goes to the north side of our water maintenance building now, that will be closed off, and that'll be a customer-only entrance.
Okay.
So it'll definitely cut down the amount of water department vehicles that have to turn onto Stonehaven and then turn into the backside of our water maintenance building. And all of our vehicles will go straight through the intersection at Stonehaven and Bedford Street heading east. And there'll be a turnoff to the left, which they'll go up and then behind the new water maintenance building.
Okay. Councilor Padilla?
Through you, Mr. President, I'd just like to make a motion that the administration work with the Diamond administration to apply for the Massachusetts Safe Routes to School Infrastructure Grants through Mass DOT.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we can second that? Okay. Just so discussion on that, the motion is, so there's a grant that's currently available that would allow for the improvements. So I think from our standpoint, we should just start leveraging potentially some Chapter 90 monies in working with the administration. I think, hearing from the superintendent, we've got, obviously, even though it's a low percentage, 25% of the students walking to school. When we start looking at the neighborhood, there's a lot of individuals that walk that neighborhood now. So I think if we can extend the sidewalks just to make it safe. But the grant itself provides for sidewalk improvements, also some traffic concerns that we may have, and I know there's not a whole lot, but signage is included in that. So if we're looking for digital signage for speedometer and pedestrian and school, school zone stuff like that. But there's also an ability to actually, with the roadway, if it allows for bicycle lanes, both at the facility of the school and outside the facility. So I think from that standpoint, it makes a whole lot of sense. There's probably going to be a lot of planning that would go into it for the submittal of an application, but I think it's something that we should definitely look at. Because I think once we start looking at all our other schools right now, for the most part, they all, where they're located, there's a lot of sidewalks upgrades that have already been made. So I think a grant for this, particularly for Diamond, makes the most sense, especially in the area that it's located, so.
I agree, that motion was made and seconded. With that being said, what, I'm sorry, do you yield?
Oh, yeah, yield, yeah.
I would like to keep this on the table until the projects are complete, to make sure that we rectify or remedy all the concerns of the neighbors. Would there be interest to motion to table? What's that?
Vote on the first motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to vote on the amendment and the letter sent to the
Yep.
administration.
I'm in favor, aye.
All those in favor?
Aye. Motion to table?
Motion table made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Sergeant.
Doesn't.
Next item on the agenda, number 4, resolution to establish a capital plan for fire station buildings. This was adopted on April 6th of 2021. Chief, would you like to come down and speak to us? Mrs. Sahadi, Mr. McCoy as well, if you don't mind.
Mr. Chairman. So while the administration is coming down, I did file this. I know there are multiple plans with regards to various buildings that the fire department was looking for. So essentially what I was looking to do was really kind of establish what the totality of the capital improvement plans would be for the fire department. And I think, quite frankly, the timing is appropriate, especially when we start talking about the Central Street Fire Station. The American Wallpaper Building is up for sale, so I think, we should probably have some discussion as to whether or not it makes sense to acquire that property. There's constantly been concerns about parking for that facility, and if we're talking about the facility itself, and if there's any renovation or potential expansion, that building makes the
Which
most
property
sense.
were you referring to? I'm sorry. was
The American Wallpaper, so
Okay.
the white building
Yep.
that's, I guess if you come in, is that Troy Street?
Yeah, Troy.
Yes.
Yeah,
Troy.
so if you go in Troy, it's right behind it.
Well, actually, I'll read the resolution for clarity. Whereas many fire stations in the city of Fall River are very old and in need of upgrades and repairs, and whereas the Stanley Street Fire Station is in dire need of replacement as it was built around 1900 to house horse-drawn fire trucks, and whereas a capital plan is greatly needed for all fire stations, and now therefore be it resolved that the Committee on Public Safety convene with the administration and the fire chief to work on a fire station building capital plan and begin developing a feasibility study for both a new Stanley Street Fire Station and a full renovation of the central station. And be it further resolved that this information, once completed, be referred to the Committee on Finance for discussion and implementation. This was adopted on April 6, 2021, and filed by Council Kadim. Welcome to the table. Nice to see you guys.
Good evening, councilors.
Best study, Council Vice President. Can I take a look at it for 1 second? Thank you.
2019, I believe.
18.
18?
Yeah.
And Stanley.
Yep. 18, yeah. May 8th, May 15th.
Chief, in your opinion, out of all your stations, which one needs most attention?
Right now, the one that needs the most attention is definitely Central Station on Bedford Street. And I think it's probably the most valuable station to invest money in. And the reasons why I'm saying that is that, number one, the location, centrally located. Number two, it has so much potential because it's such a large station. We actually call it the Big House. That's the nickname for it. And if you look at all the bays on Troy Street, you look at all the bays on Bedford Street, it has so much potential. It was the first modern station built, and it was built in 1931 or 32. And the other reason why I think it's worth the investment is that very little has been done to that station in the 36 years I've been on this job. 1987, I was on the job, they replaced the windows. Not the best windows, they're still in there. They were Lexan windows, plastic, scratched, so you can't even look outside these windows now. And then they replaced some tile in the corridors. Aside from that, maybe some lighting on the apparatus floor. The living conditions are pretty poor, because in all these years, very little has been done to that station. Under Chris Gallagher, the roof finally was repaired, so there wasn't so much seepage in there. And his intention was to take care of the envelope of that building and then start on the interior. And the other reason why I think it's a good investment is that that building is built like a fortress. I think I brought you on a tour, and I probably brought some other councils on that. The way it was built, steel construction, solid construction. So even despite all the neglect over the years, it's worth the money. I want to remain optimistic about this, but through all the years, I've become a pessimist about this because I've given so many tours, and this is going back to when I was a lieutenant there. I spent most of my career in the company at the Central Fire Station, and I want to show you some proof of what I'm talking about. Everybody goes through, and we show them the squalid conditions, and everybody says, we're going to do something about it. So these are Polaroids from 1995. The administration back then, after so much people complained about it, decided they were going to put lipstick on the pig. So they sent in a painter and a plasterer, and they went in and tried to make the place look kind of decent. But the plaster back then, the painter back then was Ski. I don't even remember Ski. Right? Ski was a valuable employee of this department, this city. and he loved the fire department. So he took pictures of the Central Fire Station in 1995, Polaroids, and he gave them to me. And he says, listen, hold on to these, because this is going to come back. This is just patchwork. They got to take care of the problem. If you just want to pass those around. And you'll see that if you go over there today, Central Station basically looks the same.
Yeah.
We had the peeling paint, antiquated appliances, the poor heating system, the lighting again. But it's worth the money. But you'll find out the guys that work there and the girls that work there, they love that building.
And I would agree with you with the location being ideal, be it that Rescue 1 comes out of there and it's the piece that mans Marine 1, and it's
Yep.
3 blocks away from the waterfront. I definitely think the location's ideal, and I think these are from before I was born.
And then the next station I think that need attention would be the Globe Station. And these are the stations through years have had a lot of neglect. And when you neglect a building for quite a while, it's tough to bring it back. The longer you wait, the worse it is. We have done some repairs to the Globe. And then obviously, we talked about Stanley Street before. We've had repairs done on that station, and we had some problems that we've tried to attend to, but that's another station. Each station has their own problems, Counselor, you know. And before this meeting, I spoke to each house captain. So we have a house captain in each station, and basically they run the station. So they put in the complaints about what the problems are in the station. So I asked them just to give me a brief synopsis of what some of the major problems are, some of the minor problems, and what type of improvements they would like to see their building. And I will share that with you later also. But,
Council Vice President?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I have a question for you. When we have the plans for fire stations at the center and Stanley from 2018, but looking at this one, the Central Fire Station, they have this being built in a parking lot across the street. Is that not your, I'm hearing you say that the building is good, it's steel.
Oh, it's very good.
So,
There were some people's intentions back then to try and sell the old Central Station and build another station in that parking lot. I think that would have been a folly. So I kind of convinced people that that station, just like it did tonight here, is well worth the investment. That any station you build in that parking lot there is not going to be viable down the road a piece.
so I guess my question to the administration would be, we had this done in 2018. I don't know that anything ever came of it. I was actually speaking to a local architect the other day who said that he had met the chief out there for a tour because he was going to do some work for the administration. Do you know, I'm just curious, do you know how much this costs? And do you remember why it was done? Was it?
Yeah, so the Collins Center was here, if you remember, and they did a report, and they gave us estimates on what all of the projects were gonna be, and the council wanted something a little bit more formalized, because most of the estimates came from either Mr. Pacheco or Mr. Perry. And so, at the request of the council, we, Mr. Gallagher hired that company, RDA, to come in and look at all of the projects that were on there and estimate them. That's the document that the chief has in his hand, which is the estimate of the, the estimate of the exterior work.
So I guess my question to the administration too, is there any, has there been any talk from the administration on redoing any of these stations?
I can speak on that.
Okay.
We have had conversations about this, and Tammy Lutino, myself, and the administration about the Central Station. And one of the things we are looking at is, community preservation money. We've had conversations with John Brandt, part of that commission, and I think they're very in favor of starting and giving some money to the Central Station. Obviously, again, we have to follow through with the plan of, let's take care of the envelope of the building and then take care of the interior. So that's mostly what you see in this study here. It's going to bring that station back to where it looked when it was built in 1930 from the outside. And one of the conversations I had with Tammy from DCR
Are you
is-
talking about this one?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Right, but isn't that to build a totally new station at this parking lot?
No,
It says new fire station.
No, this one here, the one that's in my hand, have you
What
looked through
date is
this?
that?
This was,
May of 18.
this is
right?
to fix the station up.
Okay, I have September of 18, but it has it at a new location.
We do have Mrs. Martino
Missy,
here as
what
well.
does your diagram look like? No, the diagram you have there.
This one?
Mrs. Martino, if you'd like, you can come down as well.
Okay, so yours is a little bit different. See, the one I have is the central fire. It just has the central station without, yours is highlighted here as a, like they were going to take that lot over and build a fire station.
Right, and on the estimate, it says the new fire station at Central and Stanley, cost of land acquisition is not included, disposal or repurposing of existing buildings is not included, so I would say that this is for a station in a new location. Either way, I'm guessing it's completely, it would be outdated at this point.
Correct.
Oh, yes. You'd have to add a lot more costs onto it.
That,
This one?
that's the full report from that period.
Have you seen this whole thing here? If you
No,
want to just, we'll make
Segala
copies.
had given us this to us,
That's what I just gave, Council.
this one?
They do have that?
Yeah, that's what you sent me.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
Yes.
So we don't have this yet.
You would have had it back in May of 18.
Oh, okay. So the September of 18?
I'm not sure about that particular
Okay. Well, either
estimate.
way, it's outdated.
Right.
I yield for now.
Okay, thank you, Council Vice President. Council
Yeah.
Martino.
No, so, and I appreciate the chief's remarks in terms of, folks constantly saying that they're gonna get things fixed, but I think that's why we're here, and quite frankly, this council is very limited on what we can do, but I think we need to have a plan. And I understand and appreciate you saying that we should worry about getting the envelope fixed first, but I think if we're gonna do it, we might as well just do it all, right? So I think we should identify what the capital needs are for the buildings, and if Central Fire Station is the priority, then let's make it the priority, and let's go out, and request the administration come back with a feasibility plan and funding for a potential building. But again, I think you're gonna need to start with the feasibility, have a complete walkthrough in terms of what we're looking at. Is space required? If we're looking for expansion, does the American Wallpaper location make sense for expansion, or if it's just parking, and I don't even know what the.
Yeah, I don't think you would need expansion, Counselor. I mean, the facility, like I said, has so much potential, there's so many bays there, like when I first got on, I served at Central Station, we had 4 pieces of apparatus, in addition to a bunch of other support vehicles.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but I mean, that's part of the feasibility study, is
Sure.
to go through, sit down with you and the administration to figure out from an operational need, what is it that you're looking for, and what makes the most sense, and can we capture it all in that building? But I, for one, think that, part of this conversation came back when we were talking about building the additional space building up at headquarters for EMS, while we're talking about, other fire stations that need to be fixed. And listen, the city has done a phenomenal job with school buildings, right? And the focus was on the schools, and rightfully so. There was a lot of money coming down from the state in terms of, some cost sharing with the MSBA monies and things of that nature. But what we did was essentially, and we continue to do, just because of funding, neglected our own buildings, right? So we built a new police station. That one's, I think 1996 when that was open, so that's starting to get dated as well, and we need to make sure that we're maintaining that from a capital standpoint. But I think it's time that instead of putting these little patchworks or Band-Aids on the buildings, that we really identify what the true needs are for each building, and just, have a scheduled plan as to what we're gonna do, what capital needs are, and if they're in phases, they're in phases. But I think when you look at the Central fire station, there's so much that needs to get done that to me, it doesn't make sense to do it in phases. You know, if we're gonna do it, let's just do it one shot and move on. Stanley Street, that's another one. I think we were going back and forth with regard to potentially working with the Housing Authority for the property in front of the Cardinal Maderas. You know, and I had mentioned at one of the meetings that maybe it makes more sense to take over the baseball field that's on the side of Stanley, utilize that property and see if we can work with the, you know, the redevelop, the Housing Authority to have maybe a baseball field located in that open space over there. Whether that works or then we just utilize North Park, I'm not sure, but I think those are the conversations that I was looking to try to get and try to really kind of get a definitive plan as to what the council can expect in terms of projects for, number one, the fire department, the police department, if they've got projects which I would think might be a little bit more minor in nature in terms of they may just need new carpet, you know, maybe some desks or things of that nature, but what other needs we have from, you know, capital improvement, building needs for public safety. So with that, I yield.
We also, not to interrupt, Counselor, but very well put, that we really have to start looking for funding, and we've started that already. You know, not just in municipal funds, but the city grant writer, Jane DiBiasio, tells me that the AFG grants, which is the Assistance for Firefighter Grants, which before was strictly for equipment, they're trying to pass a bill now where they're going to free up funds that now you can not only build new stations, you can also fix up some of the stations you have. So hopefully that passes soon. It'll be another option, but I agree, we have to look and we have to start now finding funds and get this stuff going, because, you know, it takes a long time. Once you start conceiving of something, it's a while before it gets done. So I don't think we can delay much longer.
And I'm going to agree with Councilor Kadim. If we're going to do it, we might as well just do the whole building. I don't want to be watching a meeting 26 years from now, and you might still be here, Chief, or the next fire chief, pull out his, I don't know, stack of iPhone pictures from 26 years ago, you know? I do agree. If we're going to do it, we're just going to do it. We can't kick the can down the road, redo the outside, and then stand by and wait to do the inside. That doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to do it, we should just do it outright. In regards to CPA funding, what was the discussion with that?
Well, we have to apply right now, and Tammy could probably tell you more about that. I think it's the end of September, we have to have the application in first. Yeah.
So
And then you just have to have a plan in place of
Okay.
what you want done.
So
what
can I,
you're
can I
looking
just,
for.
can I just make a recommendation?
Absolutely.
Because I don't disagree, because I think the process is a long process. Once you initiate the process, it goes by rather quickly. I mean, you know, 3 years will come and go just like that, and then you're doing a ribbon cutting. But before we get there, I truly, and I understand we've done a very light feasibility study in terms of what the cost would be, but I think we should have funding that is sent down to the city council, a request for funding, to at least do it in phases in terms of, let's do the feasibility, let's figure out what we're going to capture for this building, what requirements are needed, operational needs, get a rough estimate as to what the cost of the project is. At that point, then we can go down to, you know, CPC, say, you know, how much money are you willing to give us to help assist with this? We can look at grants at the same time. But at that piece, we've got at least a generic estimate as to what we think the project's going to cost, and we can have, you know, a specific and a conceptual floor plan on what some of the improvements are going to be, right? So we'll have those documents in front of us, and then at that point, we can talk about what the funding mechanism is for the building project itself. And then obviously, when they go out to bid, It may be close to the, you know, to the bids that come in, or maybe significantly higher than what we anticipated, but we'll deal with it at that point. But I think to really kind of get this process going, it's the feasibility, the conceptual drawings and the plans, and then figuring out the other funding mechanism. But knowing that, and I agree with you, regardless of whether we got grants or CPC, I think we should be committed to making the improvements to the station, so.
I agree. The only thing that I have a concern about, council, is that there's a time frame on this for the funds. So I'd hate to miss this round, because we were going to do a feasibility study, but you know it's going to take a while. And I think we should move forward with that at least and get that money, and that'll be like the first step And then we can do that feasibility study, which I totally agree with. You're totally right on that. Because it is gonna be a long-term thing, so let's get the study done, but I just don't wanna lose those funds right now, because I think we could
Which
use
funds,
them.
which funds are you talking
The
about?
CPC funds.
So I don't think, I mean, because unless there's going to be a motion to, I mean, a vote by the residents to take CPC out, I don't think you're going to necessarily lose the funds, right? I think as long as the committee is committed to it, we can do it. Well, whether it's this round or the next round, I think the funds are always going to be there. Whether there's support for it is a different story,
Yeah.
right? So I guess because the only reason I say that is what I hate to do is go there for historic and then say, okay, we're going to change out windows and all this other stuff, and then you go in there and part of your renovation, you've got to pull out windows, you got to redo pointing or cut into the brickwork for HVAC or something like that. You know, then we just wasted CPC money, right? So I just want to make sure we're not you know, duplicating efforts and monies, right? So. And quite frankly, I think if the council is committed to the project, we're committed to the project one way or the other, whether it's CPC, I mean, you know, the best world, we get CPC funding, we get grant funding, and then we utilize some bonding, right? Worst case scenario, it's all through bonding, right? But I think at the end of the day, we've got to be committed to the building, right? Or if we're not committed to the building, let's say we're not committed to the building, but we can't have it both ways and try to patch it up. So if we're committed to the building, let's just do it. But I say this is just the process. You start with the feasibility, make sure, because that's where the detail work's going to get into with the chief on what he wants to see. They're going to go in there with the engineers and the architects and say, okay, this needs to be done, you know, and they have some generic codes that will fit into that. Then we get the idea, we fund it, and that's when you actually get into your design of the building, and that's, you know, full bore, and then we're talking about 1.5 years, 2 years to, because it's a renovation. It's going to be more expensive than, you know, your typical construction, but, you know, to the chief's point, that they don't make buildings like that anymore, right? So those buildings last. So I say we invest in it. And part of this, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I also think we need to start looking at the other stations as well. Stanley Street, what are we doing with that? What's the plan for that? Because I think we can do potentially dual track if we need to, right? I mean, they're not the same size projects, if you will. I mean, the Stanley Street will probably be considerable, but it's, when you get into the renovations, it's just a little bit more challenging with renovations, so.
Do you have something to say, Mr. McCoy?
I don't want to speak for for Councilor Kadim. I just want, first of all, I'm in total agreement about not just doing the envelope and the exterior. So everything, I'm just echoing the opinion here of the councilors. I'm in total agreement. Councilor Kadim, I think though, I don't want to speak for you, but are you saying that you don't have a problem if the chief and Tammy pursue the other funding concurrently, right? I understand you want the feasibility, okay.
But
I just wanted that for clarification.
Sometimes CPC will put a timeframe on the use
Yep.
of the funds, so
Yep.
if they're okay with it, and I just don't know, what are we requesting? How much are we requesting? So I think once you get the feasibility, you can say the envelope of the building, right? You probably might be able to get more money if we have an actual feasibility. And if I'm on the CPC, I would want to say, hey, listen, show me what you're going to do with the building, right? So that would be all your conceptual drawings that you typically would get during the feasibility phase. And what exactly are you looking to do? At the same time, I mean, during the feasibility, if we're looking to know that we're going to try to tie into CPCs and try to keep it historic, then we talk about, you know, during that process, we want to make sure that, you know, maybe the windows and the doors might be, you know, somewhat historic in nature, or, you know, which could drive up some costs. But if we get to the CPC for historic purposes, why not do it, right?
Thank you.
Council Vice President?
Thank you. So, Chief, I think I heard what you were saying. You don't want to miss out on this funding. And just looking through what Mrs. Hardy just gave us with the envelope of the building, I didn't see any significant changes. Do you think that there would be any significant changes?
No.
You'd still be going pretty much with what on the outside, just the repairs,
Exactly.
correct?
Right.
So if you applied for the CPC funding now, it's usually not awarded until, what, late winter, early spring?
What's that?
They usually don't decide until late winter, early spring anyway, on who's
I
getting
believe that's right.
those funds. The only thing that I would want to see is a commitment from the administration and the council, because I would hate for you to get awarded funds and then get a feasibility study, and then in 3 years, another council is sitting here with a 3-year-old feasibility study that we didn't do anything with. So I would want commitment from the whole on the project from the administration and the council.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I yield.
So, and that's why I said if we do the feasibility, right, and they come down with, because the feasibility would probably be anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 if you're gonna do it legitimately, right? So a $50,000 to $100,000 commitment from the administration and the council for a report, I think is pretty significant, right? That's an investment, right? It's not short money. So it just will lead to, hopefully, a legitimate commitment moving forward. So that's phase one. The next phase would come back down. But I agree with what Councilor LeBeau is saying. I just think that initial feasibility stance with the appropriation coming from the council should show a honest commitment for a project.
I think that's a great first step.
And I guess I do disagree with you because we showed a commitment, or somebody showed a commitment at this point.
We had nothing to do with that.
No, Mrs. Sahadi said that the council asked for this.
Yeah, but we didn't fund that. That's not a real feasibility. I'm talking about a true feasibility. And you hire an architect to come in, they walk through the entire building. So it's the initial, whether we say that we give an estimate of $20 million for the project and we commit to $20 million of the project, the first phase of it is gonna have almost a feasibility phase into this project. So I'm saying let's fund the very first phase, which is more than this. This is gonna be a true, let's go through, let's see what site work there's gonna be. There's gonna be borings, there's gonna be testing so that you know exactly what you're gonna have to anticipate in this project. Hazard mitigation, so we'll have all that put into a plan. So it's really the first step into a building project. So that's I guess, I wanna make sure that I'm clear that that's what I'm looking for. So if we agree to that and we make, put forth a recommendation either to the full council for their consideration to send a letter to the administration, I think that in itself would be the commitment saying that we want to see the central fire station building project started.
I agree. I agree with that. That was 2018?
Yes.
Okay, so the numbers in itself,
Are old.
inflation, it's gonna be a lot more expensive. Well, I don't wanna say a lot more expensive, but material's definitely more expensive now than it was back in 2018. And we're gonna have to definitely do a new feasibility study. And I agree with you, a more in-depth one to where we get a number and just do it. We just get it done, and we're not sitting here talking about it next year or the year after. And it's one less thing off our plate. And then I would be in agreement that if Stanley can be done either at the same time or right after, these firefighters deserve a decent place to live. And they work a tough job, and they're working 24-hour shifts. So I think this should take precedent, and we should get it done sooner than later. Ms. Martina, what was the date was it September? You said there was a deadline for the funding?
September is when we submit the eligibility application.
Okay. All right. Ms. Sahadi?
Oh, yeah, I just want to say, I completely agree that we really need to do the feasibility study first, because if this project is over 5 million, we have to go to the voters.
Yep.
And we're not going to make it on this election, so we're really talking 2 years down the road before it even goes to the voters.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with
You
that
know,
as well.
excluding a special or some other type of election, it would be 2 years down the road before it even got on the ballot.
How long do you think it would take if we called for a feasibility study to get done?
Legitimately, you probably be able to get it done. 6 months might be quick, but probably like 8 months, because it's a really in-depth conversation with the chief. So it'd be a lot of heavy lifting for the chief to really kind of walk through and explain what, operationally he's looking for. And so they'll go through all that, and then, getting the engineers on board. So, but you're going to talk about a project like that anywhere from, $100,000 to $150,000 for an architect to fully do that.
Now,
And then those are just estimates.
And that's
don't hold me to
just
it,
one station for the 8 months roughly. Now, what if we did both, and it brings us to 16 months, which right around the corner will be the next election, and we'd have the feasibility studies done, and we'd be set to
They could
move?
do concurrently, though.
Can they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, assuming, depending on who you hire and what their staffing is like, they certainly could be done concurrently.
Yeah.
And I could, if I may,
Of course.
Councilor Peckham, not only will you see just costs go up because this is 3 years old, but again, back to Councilor Kadim's point, it's going to be a much more thorough,
you know, a much more thorough feasibility study. Because again, that, you know, from what I saw in there, again, strictly repointing and all exterior type work and maybe sealing some leaks and window work and whatnot, but you're gonna see a much more extensive report. So
Yeah.
we're talking a whole new ballgame, which
Yeah,
I agree is necessary.
just
but it's
mechanical,
Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
HVAC and all that,
And I know a lot of requirements have changed recently on what has to be inside the stations, and so that'll have to be taken into consideration. A question I had was it mandated that we needed now, this building would, I'm assuming, historic and be grandfathered in, but with some of the other stations, wasn't it mentioned that the newer stations have to have an ingress and egress, so you're going one side out the other?
It's recommended, I'm not sure, I think it's NFPA recommended, but there have been stations built outside of Fall River that are not in and out, like you're saying. It is the best way to go.
Yeah.
Only because it takes out a lot of the minor accidents that happen when you're constantly like backing a piece of apparatus in. Now you're just going forward, it's, you know, it's the same thing as a car. You know, we're better off going forward than we are backwards.
Of course. And I asked that for my own
Yeah.
curiosity. 'cause
So
I remember that
those are
coming up.
just recommended standards. They're not required. There's not anything that says you absolutely have to follow these. These are just, you know, national standards. But to the chief's point, there are, I mean, especially smaller stations where, like satellite stations, tend to be, you know, you don't have sometimes the space to have the drive-through availability.
All set? Thank you. Council Vice President, anything? I like hearing that the administration and the three of us sitting here are somewhat all in agreement with what should move forward. And any suggestions on, other than tabling this and trying to go to the administration, send out an appropriation?
I'll make a motion to refer it to full council so that we can send a letter requesting, I guess, funding for a feasibility study for the central fire station for a building project.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
So the motion would be for the Committee on Public Safety sending a letter to the administration making that request.
So I want to do it differently. I'd just like to refer this to full council and have with a recommendation to full council that we send a letter to the administration so that we have the buy-in of the full body.
All right, well, with that being said, I think maybe table this until we can send the letter and find out which avenue we're gonna go.
So I think if we're going to refer it, right, we can't table? Or can we
Correct.
table?
Well-
I mean,
If you want to refer you want to refer the resolution to the full council with a letter that have full support of the council.
all right, so I'll make a motion that we just send a letter to, a recommendation to full council while we maintain this agenda item, this topic, because we've got Stanley Street as well
Okay.
in committee.
All right, so we'll motion to table this item, send the letter, and entertain it in the future once we figure out what we're doing appropriation-wise, funding-wise, and with the feasibility study I'm referring to. So
Yep.
Is there a motion to table this item?
Well, we have to take a vote on the first one.
Oh, I'm sorry, motion, take a vote on the first item that Council Kadim suggested.
Do you have the motion?
So basically, out of the committee, I would put together a letter, and I will send it with a committee report to the full council, asking for full support
Yes.
to be voted on, and we'll table this matter here.
All right, so motion to vote on that item.
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
Motion on table?
Motion so made,
Second.
seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, councilors.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Motion so
Second.
made. All those in favor?
Aye.
Give that back to me, I'll scan it in and email